I'll be talking about exploring wine with natural language processing, or NLP. Although first, just to introduce myself, oh, no, too far. I'm Ian. I have a background in mathematics and ecology. Back in those days, I studied eels. Since then, I've worked in the museum and banking industries. And since COVID and quarantine has happened, I have really been missing my local wine tastings, partially because for about a year before COVID happened, I was starting to get into wine. And I love exploring new things, trying new things, but I kept running into the same issue, which is the fact that wine can be really intimidating. There's a ton of it out there. It has incredibly long history. I mean, there are people who make their careers just entirely off knowing wine. So it can be daunting to get into. So my goal in this project was to try and use machine learning to create a recommender where you could give it notes or things that you liked about a particular bottle, and it could give you recommendations on other styles to try and explore from there. Of course, to get any machine learning going, though, you have to start with data. So I originally from Wine Enthusiast, but sourced from Kaggle, I managed to get about 110,000 reviews of 15 varieties of wine. We have a Pinot Noir example here. And they were fairly uniform. They're all about 2 to 4 sentences, and they are along these lines of tasting notes. Although to get a better idea of what was actually in these rather than just reading through them, we can look at how often certain words are showing up based on the variety. So here we see Pinot Noir is showing tannins, cherries, oak. It's definitely coming in with those, larger flavors. While Chardonnay, on the other hand, has that acidity, ripeness, citrus, pear. And as you go through the varieties, they all have these certain words that are showing up specifically for them. There is definitely a good amount of overlap, but these are the variables that this model is really focusing on. Speaking of the model, we start off with these raw reviews. Those move into a TF-IDF matrix, which you may remember Jess walked us through earlier. I'm not really going to add anything more on that because nothing more to add. Those vectors are passed into a complement naive Bayes first. That's a model that takes a review and it's going to calculate the probability that that review is associated with a certain variety based on how probable the words in that review are associated with that variety. From that, we have probabilities for all 15 varieties in this model. Those get passed into a random forest classifier, which takes a whole bunch of decision trees and aggregates them, finally giving us 5 wines to explore based on that original review and those tasting notes. Now, this setup ends up with an accuracy of about 60%. But more than accuracy, what I cared about is when it got things wrong, how did it get them wrong? Was it in the same neighborhood? Could this work for a recommender? And if we take a look at some of these results, so firstly, we've got this Pinot Noir review put in, and these are our top 5 recommendations. It got Pinot Noir right off the top. But then as we go through the other ones, they're all building off notes that are present in this Pinot Noir review, right? They're either building off a medium to full bodied with strawberry, cherry, and pomegranate, or they're building off the baking spices and the tannic nature of it. And so it is pulling similar wines worthy of exploration based on our interest in this Pinot Noir. That said, sometimes it doesn't guess right on the first one. So this Chardonnay, it at first thought that it was a Riesling. But again, that Riesling is coming through with a richness, the brightness, right? And a lot of these are building off those in similar ways. They're looking for the mellow creaminess or the zesty lemon. So all these words are giving avenues for this recommender to pull other wines to suggest, which is exactly what I was hoping for originally. Being able to give some characteristics of a wine you enjoy and to get some pointers of, oh, you might want to check this out. Now, once this recommender is done, we should probably talk about conclusions and next steps because it's a data project, there are always next steps. So I would love to explore further vectorization and model tuning. I think that while this is in a state where I'm happy with it. It can always get better. But mainly what I'm interested in is being able to get this out to people, actually being able to use it. To that end, I have wrapped it up in a Flask app, and it is accessible on the web. Let's take a quick look. So here we've got some tasting notes that I just put in, what I like in a white wine. And if we hit submit, we end up with 5 recommendations, all of which I absolutely enjoy. That said, this Flask app is publicly available. If you head to bit.ly/winerex, you can use this as well. That said, thank you so much for your time, and I'm here to answer any questions you have.